Okay, let's go ahead and spend a few minutes talking about the serial murder characteristics, the serial murderer characteristics. Again, I need to be very cautious here and point out that these are only probabilities or indicators that or characteristics that may be more likely, but they are not necessarily rules to go by. And we see many mistakes made in profiling serial murderers because we use very rigid typologies, and that can be a problem. But in general, serial murderers tend to be male, although there are certainly female serial murderers. They tend to be white, although there is a representation of other racial and ethnic groups. The age range tends to be 25 to 34, although we certainly have seen younger and older. And we also may see that the serial murderer continues his or her career over a lengthy period of time. The successful serial murderers tend to be intelligent or at least have street smarts and may be very charming and charismatic, and that may be part of their sociopathic personality. They may also, in some cases, be law enforcement groupies. They may have an affiliation for dressing in uniform or acting as if they can carry out law enforcement activities or that they can enforce the law. And we also may see a personality disintegration over time, especially when it becomes more toward the area where they are going to engage in their killing behaviors. And in the serial killer's mind, there is an ideal victim, although in reality, they will choose a victim who comes closest to that criteria in many ways. And they have an imagery or a script of how they would carry out a particular murder, who they murder, how they would do it, what they would use, why. They have a self-generated logic that they tell themselves, and we can use a lot of the scripting theory to analyze the crime scene and also the thinking processes of the perpetrator. And so we might see a lot of violent imagery that becomes uh, manifested in the actual killing, and a variety of the crime scene indicators might lead us to try to put together a script of the actual murderer. Holmes and Holmes do a nice job talking about the stages of serial murder. For example, they talk about the first stage being distorted thinking, and the serial murderer may think that everything is going well and that they have a very high regard for themselves. Stage two is the fall. Something negative happens, their inadequacies come out, they begin to feel bad about themselves or angry or wanting revenge or to show that they are powerful and domineering. And stage three would be the negative inward response they have to all this, which leads to stage four, the negative outward response, which is the violence and killing. And stage five is the restoration, which is their sense of feeling adequate and relieved. And so in a sense, that would recycle. Then they have stage one, distorted thinking, then stage two, the fall, stage three, negative inward response, stage four, negative outward response, stage five, restoration, moving back to stage one, and so forth. In conducting a crime scene analysis, what you want to look at, and there's charts in your textbook that you can go over, or there's descriptions, I should say, in your textbook that look at the different kinds of serial murders. They look at the visionary, the mission, the comfort, the lust, the thrill, and the power and control. And then they look at such crime scene analysis factors such as whether or not the crime scene is controlled, if there's overkill, if there's a chaotic crime scene, if there's evidence of torture, if the body has been moved, if there's a specific victim, if they have a weapon they use at the scene, if they have some type of relationship to the victim, if they know the victim, if they engage in some deviant sexual behavior, if they use a weapon of torture, if they strangle the victim, if they engage in penile penetration, if they use an object to penetrate the victim, if they engage in necrophilia or sexual behaviors after the victim has been killed, and if they choose a particular gender, and so on. So these are some of the things that we look at, and then we try to put that together to come up with a profile based on the characteristics. And we may label the type of offender as visionary, mission, comfort, lust, thrill, or power and control. We may also try to look at what the Holmes and Holmes refer to as windows of the serial murderer. For example, their fantasies of murdering and engaging in their particular behaviors, and whether or not they stalk victims, and if they abduct, or how they kill and how they dispose of the body. We put this all together and try to look at a big picture. For example, do they use blindfolds? Often using a blindfold, we believe, is an attempt to depersonalize and objectify the victim. Do they also attack the face, which again is another method of depersonalization? How do they dispose of the body? We may learn some important factors related to the nature of the crime by how the body's disposed. And do they engage in dismemberment of the body? And do they do this perhaps for sexual gratification purposes? Do they use some type of bondage to degrade and injure the victim during the killing? We would also look at the position of the body, any instruments or products that are used, and how the crime scene is staged, basically. We'd also want to see if things were removed that they would keep basically as souvenirs or trophies, perhaps. And so we put this all together, and this doesn't give us a specific suspect, but this helps us to come up with some ideas of what the person might be like. And this also is extremely helpful when we're trying to link other crimes that have been committed not only in the same area, but in other areas as well, especially when you have a geographically mobile offender. And many times we will see, and Godwin points this out in his classification, schemes of serial murderers. And very relevant point is that you will often see a mixed offender that has some characteristics of more than one of these typologies. And you can go ahead and use the chart that I have provided in the PowerPoints, or that the reading material, the chart in your textbook as well, to kind of look at the different typologies and the crime scene analysis. And this wraps up this video.